One. Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
Hi, and I'm Jason Kauzlarich, the creative director at Fangoria. We just put out our new issue with Evil Dead Rise on the cover. This will be for subscribers, and if you're not a subscriber, you can pick up the cover featuring Renfield. And I'll show some Yellowjacket stuff on the inside a little later.
Nice. Yeah, and that's awesome. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. I know you're such a huge Yellowjackets fan, so am I. Also, we can talk about this a little bit more later, but I love the Renfield popping out of the logo.
Yeah.
Love it. So we are going to be talking, of course, about Yellowjackets season 2, episodes 1 and 2. I'm going to do a recap. There's a lot going on, so hopefully I don't miss anything. But I think I have all the major threads kind of covered. This picks off where we left. And this episode is definitely like very Lottie focused, which is great. Like we're finally getting her backstory and a little bit more about like post Woods, what's happening. Like we get that horrific flashback of her, receiving electric shock therapy. That's crazy. And this was something that was very much alluded to last season about her being in a mental facility. And that's really interesting because, she kind of takes on this like guru healer. And we even see that in the flashbacks of her in the hospital with a patient having an episode. And then adult Taisha discovers the altar, RIP Biscuit. She gets a new dog named Steve. I hope he survives. And this is a really interesting episode for like both flashback and present Taisha. We discover that she's still sleepwalking. She sleep bites Van. She at one point oh no, that's next episode. I was gonna say she almost goes off a cliff, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Going through my notes. Natalie wakes up from being kidnapped by Lottie and her cult. There's a lot of really great interactions between her and I don't recall the her keeper,
one of Lisa.
Okay.
The younger one that has her putting her tied up to the bed.
Yeah.
And
this episode's also kind of important because as the episode hints, with the episode's title, Lend Me Your Ear, Shauna, who's still talking to Jackie, who's a popsicle at this point, actually like eats her ear, so she's the first one to actually like consume human flesh. So we also have like some new introductions of some new characters. Of course, Elijah Wood's character, we don't actually see him in this episode, but he's of course one of the citizen detectives that like is on Misty's sort of like Reddit 4chan kind of sleuthing site. And I think he's a great addition. I'll get more into that in the review, though. And also just how much I love Misty so much. But we also are starting to kind of build up with the fallout of Adam and him going missing. The big arc of this episode is with Shauna and her husband Jeff, and how Jeff kind of has to help Shauna clean up her mess by going to the art studio. We get all these really interesting paintings of Shauna. There's one that was like a really grotesque sort of version of her, which I find really fascinating. And we can dive in more of that when we get into like our theories and stuff. But they have an interesting lovemaking session, I guess. And you know, later on, Jeff kind of pumps out to Papa Roach, and I feel like we're both about the same age, so like hearing that like new classic new metal, it's good. um, and yeah, so that's like interesting how, you know, we are seeing kind of what's going on with Adam. And I guess that we get into more episode 2 of like you know, people looking for him and quickly suspecting Shauna. And I have to say, one of the highlights of this episode is it's Misty, of course, but it's her I want a lawyer cookie. I love that so much. Am I missing anything? I think those are the major kind of beats. I know like Shauna's daughter kind of finds the um like half burned ID, so
Mhm.
she's putting this together. She was already kind of putting the pieces late last season. um I don't super love her character, but it's not the actor's fault. I just think the bratty teen daughter is kind of an overused trope. But anyways, but yeah, that's the first episode in a nutshell. Like I said, if I forgot anything,
Well, this is when we start seeing like Lottie is having visions, which is what's going to drive, I guess, a lot of theories people have for
yeah.
the future episodes.
Yeah, she was having visions of, oh gosh, I can't think of the super religious girl from season 1 that died in the
Mhm.
plane.
Yeah,
But she's like starting to see more of her. Yeah.
they have to see like a. She also sees like a tunnel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, like we see kind of the flashbacks of like what we saw last season, which was like the sort of tunnel with all these like candles and stuff. So yeah, I think it kind of like builds on that. But yeah, what did you think of the overall episode?
I really dug it. It was a nice, they gave us a really pretty lengthy intro to recap season one as we went into it. So it's like, kind of reintroducing the characters that we haven't seen for a year. And, like you said, Misty's, are the VIP of that episode.
Yes.
Just add some comedy, but yeah, just they're really going all in with Lottie. And essentially she has her cult that she's building, in the woods, and now as an adult, she has a whole new following, and abducts Nat.
Yeah, this is very much like Lottie's episode to really explore her adult character, which is awesome because that's something that was teased last season. So we do finally get to see, you know, adult Natalie and Lottie together again in this weird, like you said, cult. And we'll touch more into this, but I in the theory section, but I'm like I've heard some really interesting theories about the symbol. I know everybody's kind of like has their own kind of theory. So, but yeah, I think like overall it's a really good episode. It does a really concise job of recapping, like you said, but also just, you know, getting you back into the groove of things. And yeah, I love it. I mean, I love this like winter of their demise sort of arc this season. And I love that they kind of changed up the intro. Like that's pretty awesome with some new footage. So I'm not going to break that down because IGN did an amazing video where they break down everything that's added, everything that's been taken out of the new intro. I'll link in the description if y'all want to check that out. They did a really awesome job, better than I could do. So, um, so I'm gonna kick it off to you. You know, like I know you were saying your highlights were like Misty and them doing a really good job of like filling you in. What else would you say is like the like standout of this episode?
I mean, just Shauna kind of completely losing it. Just talking to her best friend that's frozen to, and putting that ear in her pocket and then kind of hiding it until the very, very end. And she just pops it in her mouth and they close, goes right to credits. Um, so it's hinting at something bigger to come. But yeah, just all the characters are, just kind of hitting that peak of like, they don't have food, it's cold. And something's probably going to happen in the next episode or two. So
Yeah, no, and that's a great point because we are really starting to see like tensions getting high, like arguments with the, among the girls. We I forgot to mention we do have some really interesting new characters that I think maybe disposable, but I'm curious. Like, I'll get your kind of take on this in a little bit, but like, I think Crystal was the theater major that likes to sing, or humming or singing,
sure.
whichever it is. Shut it down. But yeah, I think yeah, I'm trying to think if there were like I know there is some like new faces, but I'm trying to think like I try to take note of like anybody that actually had a name. Like I know Crystal was one of them.
Yeah, Keela, I think is one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and when in the present time, Lisa, the one who ties her to the bed. Um, yeah, but yeah, just going back to other characters, I think everyone across the board just likes Jeff more and more with each episode as he
Yeah.
slightly becomes a little bit more unhinged, and he's not that like because in the first season one he was pretty rigid and very conservative type character. Now he's kind of dropping that, and him and Sean are just doing new things.
Yeah, just
Going to town in that art studio.
Oh my gosh, right? Like they're like I mean their baggage just matches each other. I love it. Yeah, you're totally right though. Like Jeff is such an interesting character. I kind of had in my notes that like I am happy that to see that they're not just making him like a background character. Like he really is. I mean, of course, he's not like one of the core plane survivors, but like he is still very intricate to the story. And again, I think it's a mark of a good show that can make his character interesting. I think that like inherently somebody like the husband of one of the characters tends to kind of get sidelined. So I think that's a mark of some really good writing.
Yeah, and I think the one of the things we didn't touch on, I think, was Nat and Travis kind of going out to look for go hunting, and just Travis, still not being able to come to terms with his brother, probably dead.
Yeah, and I know in the next episode it's like they kind of delve more into that, but yeah, that's one of the ultimate mysteries. I think like the two big mysteries are what's going to happen with Shauna's baby and what happened to Javi. I think those are like that's I mean maybe not the biggest, but those are like the two immediate like questions. I know it's really been funny that like the cast have like said please don't let the baby be eaten, and they assured them that that's not one of the possibilities that so yeah, and if anyone's worried about that, I guess they put that to bed right away. I don't know, like what are some of your theories? Like what do you think about like we'll start with like Javi. What do you think is going to happen there?
I mean, I've seen I think he's dead. Um unless he just found a place to hide, and as we see in some of Lottie's visions, there's like a tunnel, or something that maybe is there that they just haven't found yet, and maybe Avi's just been hiding out, but that means he'd have to have found his own food, something like that. So I don't know, the numbers aren't on his side, I think, but As we'll find out in episode 2, there's a little bit more tension between Travis and Nat. So I don't want to get into that yet. One interesting theory I saw online was, speaking of like seeing that tunnel, seeing it in her vision, someone's like, well, if you turn that little stick figure on its side, like almost like a map that has like a tunnel in it. I don't know how much
Hmm.
I would read into that, but it is interesting, having a show where people are having theories every episode, kind of like that Lost show in the background. Um, so it is nice to have a show like that where the fan base is growing with every episode and there's new theories and people are trying to put together those pieces.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so smart to have a show that you can interact with, like where you could like dive into these like theories. And I mean, just it's fun from a storytelling perspective, but it's smart from a marketing side as well. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the easiest way to get somebody to talk about your project is, I mean, that's the whole marketing behind, Cloverfield. Once upon a time, that was so huge, putting all those pieces together. But I mean, that's just such a really good way to, keep your brand going and keep
Mhm.
it interesting and fresh for people to pick apart. Like, since we were talking about the symbol, somebody online was saying like if you turn it upside down, it looks like hanging deer, or it looks like
Mm.
there's like the hook that so I mean, it's like that's a whole rabbit hole you could get down though,
Yeah.
like what that symbol means. But honestly, like I would be completely fine with them leaving it completely ambiguous, like the whole
Sure.
series. Um, but yeah, as for like my hobby theories, I think he's alive. I don't know how.
Hmm.
um, but like they're really making, especially next episode, which we'll get into, but like Lottie's like, I feel that he's alive, like he's out there, like somehow. Again, it's for the writers to figure out how he survived. As you say, it's not likely, but with all the crazy shit happening,
Hmm.
I it's I think it's plausible. So yeah, and as far as Shauna's baby, like I think I had this weird suspicion it's going to be anticlimactic. Like I think it's going to, like, we're building it up, and I think she's just going to miscarry or something,
Hmm.
or um something weird's going to happen and she just loses it, or I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like how everyone was like, we know Jackie dies, but how? Like what happens? And it was this huge build up, and then she like froze to death. It wasn't as like she's not. I mean, I know they kind of cleverly try to make us think maybe she was Pit Girl.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just have a sneaking suspicion it's just going to be something that's like not as maybe dramatic or as interesting as maybe everybody's sort of building up to. So I'm not getting my hopes up, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they ultimately do with that.
I have faith in the showrunners that it'll be interesting. They've been
Yeah.
pretty good for first season and then what I've seen of season 2. Um, so
Yeah. So now, do you want to jump right into season, or gosh, yeah, jump right into episode 2?
sure, just so you know what I'm looking at, because there are a lot of names in the show, and then they added new characters, and then characters that you didn't see an adult version of in season 1. Now you see Lottie's adult present day version played by was it Princess Leia's mom from Kenobi.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so in the new issue, Meredith Borders, our editor, she did like it's like a yearbook type of thing, kind of to
Nice.
prime people, and then you get 4 pages, and so we kind of did like a yearbook type style, so a way you can refresh yourself with the characters, kind of little lines about them, and then the staff page, all the adults. But
Nice.
so it's helping me remember names because there are a lot, and we'll talk more about some of the new ones like I added in episode 2.
Yeah, Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Like that's such a clever way to do like the design like that, like the yearbook.
Yeah.
That's really smart. Like uh I want to gush a little bit about Fangoria because it is like for a lot of people, like that's sort of like what got me really interested in like the nitty gritty of horror.
Sure.
Like I've always been I mean, and it's probably the same for you, probably the same for many horror fans, but yeah, you can't get more iconic and awesome. Like I remember like hearing and reading about like stuff like Fulci's of the Beyond from like an issue of Fangoria and
Mhm.
being like, oh my God, I gotta watch this. Or I like, I would like make lists of all the shit that they would mention. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. How long have you been working with them?
Uh, I've been with the current team. I've been with them for almost 2 years, and then I was with Fangoria before that for about almost 2 years, so almost 4 years total.
Nice.
But yeah, and so I run the social media. So if you see a meme on there that's very silly, it's probably me.
Nice.
And then I work with Phil Nobel Jr., the editor in chief, and Meredith Borders, the other editor, and I design the entire magazine cover to cover. And sometimes, like this yearbook one, Meredith had the idea, the concept of how to lay it out like a yearbook, and we kind of collaborated on that together, which is fun.
Well, yeah, that's amazing. Like, and I love the new incarnation of Fangoria. I think it's like y'all took something great and made it better.
Mhm.
It's so awesome. Like, again, when we set this up, I was so excited and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna like completely fanboy out on you, but like, yeah, I was pretty excited.
And I mean, we're all fans. Everyone that works on it, we're all fans of Fangoria too. Before we were working here, we have Angel, who's our digital editor, and she's great. And then Phil, he pretty much with Meredith, kind of put together what this current version of the magazine is, and I got brought on board to do the layouts, and it's been wild.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, like prior to this, I'm assuming like you had like like a lot of experience in like graphic design and layout and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I was in advertising before I uh, started doing this, and then
Nice.
I had with my friend, we started just like a little like website, made it look as official as possible, and, and so we kind of just weaseled our way in and got like press passes to things. We would cover conventions locally, and then through that we were able to like pitch ourselves, you know, to work on Fangoria, and
Yeah, that's amazing. Like just like I admire that so much. It's like, hustling for your dream job and then
sure,
getting it. Like that's amazing. Like it's I mean, I was like talking to who at the time was the programmer for TCM Underground. And she unfortunately got laid off, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that must have been like a dream job. Like pinch yourself, like every day you get to do cool shit like that. So that's awesome. But yeah, like I guess we'll get into episode 2, which I have to say, like I liked episode 1, but like episode 2 we're ramping up and I'm loving it. Like we're really getting into like some really crazy shit, and we'll get there, but I want to
yeah,
pick your brain about the final moment, of course, which is pretty
sure,
crazy.
yeah. We'll wait to talk about that. Let's get through some of the first stuff because it's gonna be hard to top that
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, so to recap, episode 2, which is the edible complex, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Shauna goes even more off the deep end. She has Jackie as a human Barbie doll. Um and I think it's a cool way to bring back that actress, because in Jackie's delusion she hears her talk. And there's a really interesting thing that she says, that she's like, Jackie says to Shauna is like, you're hungry. And she's like, yeah, I know they're making dinner. She's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, here, eat me. It's fine. And of course, that's some foreshadowing, especially the name of the episode. And later on, like, Ty and the other girls kind of discover that Jackie is, again, this human Barbie doll, and they get freaked out, which is understandable. And they decide that since they can't bury her body, that they're going to cremate her. Other things going on. Ty is sleepwalking. She almost goes off a cliff before Van saves her. This is really interesting because in this scene we see the no-eyed man, and I was really excited that he's kind of lingering in the peripheral for now. That's another thing that, like, I want to know more about. That's so interesting. And yeah, so we learned that Lottie has kidnapped Nat because of her destructive tendencies. But the huge thing is, Lottie fills in Nat on what happened to Travis. That's kind of the huge thing in this episode. And this is kind of cool because it's the first time we see at least a live adult Travis. She tells him that he was getting really weird and paranoid, and he believed that, just kind of like Lottie, kind of like Van, when you get close to death, you can really see the darkness and what it kind of wants. And so he actually is the one that sets up the candles. He rigs the crane to kind of like hang himself, but she was supposed to sort of like pull him back down, and it did not work. So so we're getting this from her point of view. So I wonder, like, how much of this is accurate, how much of this is, again, just from a certain point of view, or maybe it's complete bullshit, or maybe it's half and half. So I take this flashback for a little bit of a grain of salt, but that's kind of like one of the big sort of revelations. Again, if you believe that's completely accurate, we are introduced to a new character who is an undercover cop, we find out, who is interrogating Shauna's daughter, who he kind of learns that Shauna was having an affair with Adam. They're trying to put these pieces together with the cop, Kevin, who is kind of snooping around into Adam's disappearance. Holy crap, the car wreck made me jump out of my seat, even though I knew it was coming. So yeah, like, adult Ty and her wife get into a horrific car wreck. I have a theory that somehow the wife of Thais is not going to make it. Like, she's kind of, I don't know. She's always like threatening her. She's like, I'm going to go to the press. I'm like, girl, I don't know if you're like, something's going to happen to you. I don't know whether Ty does it or something. But I don't know. We don't know.
I mean, I think we're going to start seeing a darker side to the kid versions and like what they're potentially capable of doing as their adult versions. We kind of got some of that through Shauna, but I think, we'll see what Misty and Nat are capable of.
Yeah, well, Misty is a straight up killer.
Yeah.
So we definitely seen that. Like, I mean, gosh, I know I fawn over her character so much, but she really is like one of my favorite characters, maybe in recent TV history. I love her so much. She's that amazing balance of like sweet and quirky, but like, she's a straight up freak, and I love it. And yeah, the other thing that's kind of interesting about this is, last episode kind of primes us for this, but Natalie is trying to give Travis some closure with Javi, so she fakes some evidence of his death. But Lottie keeps saying, like, he's not dead. I feel that he's alive. Again, Don't know if that's the case. I think it is. I think that they wouldn't make such a big deal about Javi if he was just a popsicle somewhere. I think that would be a little boring for the show. But I think the huge centerpiece of this. Oh, and then we finally are more formally introduced to Elijah Wood's character. And this kind of back and forth that he has with Misty, I love it. I love this duo so much. I'm excited for them to like pair up and oh my gosh, just give them a spin-off. Give them their own series. I would watch that. And yeah, I guess, and again, the huge thing is we finally kind of see the girls eating Jackie through some nature shenanigans. She's perfectly broiled. She smells good. They're like, all right, I'm hungry. But the more interesting thing about that is interwoven into that is like these I don't know if they're flash forwards or what they are, of like them having this very like eloquent ritualistic sort of feast, and they're in like, I don't know, Greek or Roman garb. So I thought that was really fascinating, and I'm like fully enticed. So what do you think? First of all, what do you think of this overall episode?
I mean, it definitely ramps things up, especially when you get to the end. And your theory of, Travis's brother still being alive holds a little bit more water when, Nat goes to Lottie and's like, why didn't Travis come to me? And then Travis tells Lottie, as much as we want to believe what Lottie says, Travis says, you'll just fuck things up, something to that effect.
Yeah.
So that kind of does like, okay, maybe he is still alive, and because of Nat, or they find his like frozen body, but he's has a totally different pair of pants on than the one that Nat showed, which I'm thinking that's maybe more of the case. And then just Travis can't ever trust Natalie again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in this episode, more and more of the kids are starting to gravitate towards Lottie and her cult stuff and believing that she can heal them or whatever. Which is interesting.
It is. It's really fascinating how, again, they're really smart in keeping the supernatural stuff still vague enough where you can make a case for it being in their head, this something that they've made up to cope, or if there really is some supernatural element. I mean, I obviously am in the camp of it's more the former than the latter, but I like how the show really is clever in straddling that line and blurring that line. I think that's really fascinating. And again, it just kind of gives you just enough information to entice you to keep coming back. Like, I think it is such a fascinating kind of dynamic just to see what these kids will do to survive, and like what you would, I mean, like putting yourself in that place, what would you do in that situation? I mean,
yeah, I mean, we can kind of see the differences maybe because it's age, but going back to the end, and they're like it's cutting between like a Roman feast, and which I think is maybe just in someone's head, or it's just a style thing. They're just trying to cope with what they're doing by not realizing that they're actually eating their friend. Whereas Ben, he's just watching this in complete horror.
Yeah.
And, he's missing a limb. So he's the weakest link out of the bunch, potentially. And you can see the fear in his face. And who knows what's going to happen down the road. Like,
yeah. So. That's a good point. I mean, strictly speaking, dead weight.
Yeah. Because we haven't seen Ben returning, right?
Right. Not yet.
So, I mean, but we also didn't see adult version of Lottie, but then we got that confirmed that she made it. Now she's off with her new cult of people in purple. And so we just don't know what's going to happen with Ben. But Yeah, I think that's a big difference. Like he's old enough to know this is wrong and we shouldn't be doing this, whereas the kids, I think, just snapped. And
Yeah.
I was, as far as horror elements go, that was the most horrific thing of the show so far. Um, Plus some of the flashbacks of like that no-eyed,
Mm, yeah.
thing. But yeah, just seeing them in very quick cuts, goes from them eating at like, all dressed up in Roman attire, and then it cuts to them like you see them just like pulling tendons and meat off the carcass there that's perfectly cooked, I guess. And yeah, that was I was speechless when the episode ended. I just turned to my girlfriend Alyssa. And I just said, "Holy shit!" and just stared back because the credits were silent, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
which made it so much more eerie and creepy. As usually they have like but when they were eating, they were when they were eating, there was Radiohead playing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Climbing up oh gosh, what was it? Climbing up the hill or something.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you had that whole feast going, and you see Ben's terrified, slowly backs up. He's
Yeah.
like, he's like, should I? Nope, nope, this is messed up, and closes that door, and it's just credits, no sound. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think this is interesting because, going back to what I was saying, it was like it kind of makes you sort of like face like what you would do in this situation. So, as messed up as it is, if
Mm-hmm.
you were in this situation, what would you do?
Oh, I mean, you want to say no, but I've never been in that kind of situation. But I think I'd be more on the side of Ben, like, uh, just especially after seeing that.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I want to say I'd be like Ben, but I mean, I'm a fatty. I need food. So bring it on. That's awful to say. Hopefully I will never ever be in that situation, but I don't know. I'm just yeah, it would at least be very tempting not to find some kind of sustenance.
Yeah, well, in that gun they have, I don't know how much ammo they have left for that thing.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point because I know in last season, like they kind of did like a little writing thing where it was like, oh, he was a hunting nut, so there's like tons of ammo,
yeah.
so it's like a cheat code of unlimited
Mhm.
bullets. But yeah,
I also think they just didn't plan, because they're kids. Ben should have maybe had them plan better. As like, winter's gonna come. We should probably start foraging, stuff that we can keep. Uh, at the South by activation they had like a big, like they recreated the cabin, like a smaller version of it. But
oh,
then there was
nice.
also like Misty's like mushroom foraging, like, and she like made teas out of it and stuff like that. So we might start getting more of that if it starts warming up and they're like, oh, we can live off the land and maybe not each other.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
have you ever tripped on mushrooms before?
Yes.
Okay, same. Yeah, I like it's so funny because I did that while camping actually. That was pretty rad
Mm-hmm.
actually. I just remember like my tent started to melt and I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny that you should mention like her being like Misty and the whole mushroom things because I don't recall if this was episode 1 or 2 because I like binged them pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
like in session, but like she's kind of forbidden to like
Yeah.
go near the food.
Yeah. I think that might have been episode one when you're starting to see
Yeah.
that they're getting hungry. Um, and they're just kind of reintroducing the character, like, don't forget she did this.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah. I just love Misty and how she is just a stone cold freak. I think it's so endearing in the first episode where she's like telling herself, "Don't cry, crying's for babies," and then just like sobs her little heart out. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, Misty." um, yeah. Gosh, this is such a great season so far. Both episodes are like fantastic. Like I I'm really excited to figure out like more about Van, specifically like adult Van, like what the divide was between Van and Ty, like why they busted up. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I mean, like there's probably a whole host of reasons why they broke up. I mean, she was like sleep eating her in the the second episode, so that might be a little bit of a deal breaker, but
Yeah, I know we will see her as an because we haven't seen
we haven't
adult
seen adult
Van,
her yet.
but they've shown. In fact, one of the first images they dropped for season 2 a
Yeah.
while back. So
Yeah, gosh, and I'm blanking on the actress's name, which is awful because she was in Servant, which was really great. And I remember her way back when she did Psycho Beach Party, or yeah, it was yeah, Psycho Beach Party. That have you ever seen that? It's
it
like
sounds familiar.
yeah, it is based on a Charles Busch play, but it's like a hilarious kind of send up of like 50s beach movies and like
Yeah, they released it on
60s.
VHS, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. But
A
yeah,
throwback.
it's well worth. I mean, I don't know, like I think it's like not super hard to find, but yeah, it's great. But yeah, she's in that, and I think a very very young Amy Adams is in that for like a second, which is cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, back to Yellowjackets though, the series is awesome. It left me hungry for more. But, so what are some of your overall kind of theories about like where the series is going to go as a whole? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I unfortunately have seen a few more of the episodes that are coming up.
Oh,
So
okay.
my theory will be a little bit more. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, so I'll kind of hold those off. But based on what we discussed earlier, I think maybe those visions will start having some sort of like, will those turn out to be real? And then is his brother alive or dead, or they just because there's something there. They've in the first two episodes, it's like she's still thinks he's alive. He feels that he's still alive, but then Matt pulls her little thing and bloodies up a pair of pants and essentially lies to Travis. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes. And then yeah, I'm curious what theories you have.
Yeah. So I think I definitely look forward to again them doing like a more like Van centric episode where it follows her adult life, kind of what's going on with her. Again, she's one of the big mysteries because we know she's coming. She just hasn't been introduced as of yet. But yeah, I mean, my theory is that we're gonna like see why they busted up. Like maybe we might get like teased on more of like what happened immediately after the rescue, like we did with Lottie. I thought it was interesting that they showed them, being rescued and going, back home, but they were very strategic about how they showed who made it
Yeah.
out. And I know like the showrunners are like very like meticulous and not giving stuff away, so that's pretty smart. But yeah, I kind of want to see more of the fallout of that. I think just how the like town kind of deals with that aftermath might be kind of interesting too, like on a microcosm of something like this. Like we got that in a little bit of season one about like articles were written and like there was a whole sort of like Yellowjackets groupies that Shauna's daughter kind of talked about, like Adam could possibly be one of these like fanboys or something. So it would be interesting to kind of see in this season like how that sort of plays out. Like I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I find that like deeply fascinating as well. But yeah, and I hope we find out what's going on with Shauna's baby. What I don't know. Now that Ty was in a wreck, like what's going on with that? I mean, I don't think that I'm like almost 100% sure she's not dead, but yeah, I think the wife is probably, or
I'd
something.
almost felt like it was almost on purpose.
Mm.
Um, like she's like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
because she didn't seem to be too affected about it in the hospital. Right, jump ahead. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Um,
but other than that, there's also Walter, getting more into him, what happens with him and Misty, because that could end up shooting her in the foot in the long run while they're trying to, cover up what, Shauna did.
yeah. It also kind of makes me wonder. I know they showed Shauna burning her diaries, but I don't know why I feel like she burnt something else. Like those aren't completely gone. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's a weird theory. I have no that's just a wild guess. I don't know why I feel like it's that might come up again. I have nothing to base that on. I just think that like it seems weird how like they build up and mythologize these journals that like you
Mhm.
know could be pretty explosive in the wrong hands, and then they just burn them. I don't know. It's just it seems too neat and tidy. So that's a wild out of nowhere theory that those aren't actually the her diaries or something. It is also kind of fascinating when we find out that we found out last season that Jeff knew all about had read the diaries and knew all
Mhm.
about this. So it made me think like, did he know that like she had all these weird interactions with Jackie's body? Like, did she
Uh-huh.
put that in her? That would be kind of awkward too.
Yeah. Unless it's all written in code. Who
Yeah.
knows?
But it's like, yeah, that is I mean, listen, if you can like survive all that marriage wise, I feel like y'all are good. Because that's some like serious, like next level shit. Um, but yeah, no, gosh, I'm so like I'm so excited for the upcoming episodes, and um, I'm excited to dive into them. Like, this has been really awesome. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to add, or anything like any?
The only thing I think of, just going back to Ben, I just want to know what's going to happen to him because, we didn't see him get off the plane. Uh, and just he saw what like things are changing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's interesting because they they like with I think episode two's their like intro to get you caught up, like they played the scene where he's like, I'm gay, to
mhm,
Misty, and I'm like, are they like priming us for like maybe Misty feeling jilted and kills him?
mhm.
Because I wouldn't put that past her. Like I don't know. I think I'm kind of leaning to what you say though. I think like he's on the menu.
Yeah, anybody we didn't see get off the plane, and that's good on the showrunner's part, leaving tons of mysteries around, and we'll see what gets solved. And it also just lets more people on Reddit go on theories, and
Yeah.
I do like reading those.
Yeah, same. No, it is great. So I will be honest, I've never seen Lost, right?
Mhm.
So, but I've heard a lot about like comparisons, um, and just how like this is sort of like the new Lost. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, kind of, except with cannibalism.
Yeah. And who doesn't love that?
Sure.
Um, but I have to say, just as a final thought, like this series, and like I know this gets bantered around a lot, but like this very much has a Twin Peaks kind of vibe.
Hmm.
Like this feels easily like it could be in like a Lynch kind of universe. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not as weird and abstract, but I can see the comparisons for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a small, everyone's kind of knows each other type thing. They all live through this shared trauma.
Yeah.
So,
Like it just gives me that like really weird off-putting feeling that Twin Peaks gave me. It's not so much that the plots are similar, but
yeah.
it's like that really like sometimes I can't put my finger on why something's so unsettling, but it
Hmm.
just is because this is like crafted to make you feel uncomfortable and uneasy always. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, the music helps a lot, and the same with Twin Peaks. The score kind of is its own character that
Hmm.
adds a layer of creepiness to it, even when it's not like a horror type scene. Just having that music playing in the background when they're walking around the woods or just doing something, it
Yeah.
just adds a new layer of creepiness and fear. And you know, then they change it up and they'll play Radiohead while they eat somebody.
Yeah.
So,
Or, Jeff will just be rocking out in his car to Papa Roach. I love that.
yeah,
So yeah, well, I guess that is it for our recap and review and random theory generation of what we think is going to happen with upcoming episodes of Yellowjackets. Um, thank you so much again for joining me and talking about what is arguably like my favorite show currently going on. So where can everybody find you, like socials and all that good
sure.
stuff?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. If you are a fan of horror, the new issue of Fangoria featuring Renfield on the cover
Yes.
should be in Barnes& and Noble comic shops, and you can also order it directly from Fangoria now. And if you want to follow us, it's at Fangoria on all platforms, and then I am at Jason Cause on Twitter for however long that platform stays around for.
Right. Absolutely. And I am also on Twitter for now. I'm going to go down with the ship. But I am at Strange Cinema 65. There you can check out my book. You can check out my weird random musings. Everything I do, I post on there, like YouTube content, just like this. And as always, thank you all for hanging out with us, and we'll see you in the next episode.